Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Responsibility Quotient podcast. I have my headphones on today. I just had a malfunction with my other AirPods, so um, this is what it's going to look like today. My name is Catherine Kowalchuk, and I'm glad you're here today. It's May 16th, 2024, and tonight I have the pleasure of speaking with a good friend of mine and somebody that I've known for a few years now. Um, Monica was in high school when Trudeau Sr. was in the Prime Minister's office. Monica's apprenticeship was ended due to Trudeau Sr.'s policies, and Monica then worked on a farm and had a brief career in the ski and recreation industry. Monica Friesz then worked for Amy Condos and eventually became a testing geologist for 20 years. Due to the feast and famine cycles, Monica became tiresome and partnered to invest in a butcher shop in Carstairs, Alberta. Since 2011, Monica has been self-employed as a contractor. Monica has been a separatist since John Chrétien was in the Prime Minister's office. Rather than remaining an armchair critic, Monica ran for an MLA position in the 2019 provincial election with the Independence Party of Alberta. Monica became a board member with the same party and held 3 portfolios since May 2019: membership director, fundraising director, and secretary. I met Monica with the Independence Party when I joined in a few years ago, and Monica was the secretary. While Monica is no longer on the board of the party, Monica continues to build and fight for the rights and freedoms of all Albertans and as secretary of the board of directors. I know Monica as well as a transgendered individual, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to have Monica on today, because of course it's a very hot topic, and I think the audience, and I know myself, are curious as to the issues revolving around transgenderism, and Monica has been great and so kind to want to share her story with the viewing audience today. And I think that we'll all learn something about not only politics and separatism, but also the controversial and touchy subject of transgenderism. So welcome, Monica, to the podcast.
Hello. How are you?
Do we have you on? I'm
Can you hear
good.
me?
And how are you? I can
Oh,
hear
I'm
you.
well.
Yep.
I'm well, thank you. I am extremely busy these days, that's for sure.
Oh, okay. What are you working on?
Well, right now I'm on a building project, doing some siding for a gentleman in Castlegar, BC. Um, I am speaking to you live from BC, the big metropolis of Deer Park. Um, and I have it's been amazing out here, because uh, we bought this property in 2016, and we weren't too sure how people were going to perceive us out here. Being out in the boonies, and we're very rural out here. I'm off grid actually. Um, we were we weren't too sure how people were going to perceive us. So,
And what do
but
you mean
the
by that?
community,
Why? What do you mean? You weren't too sure about
well,
that?
being transgendered and everything, we didn't really know how people were going to, accept us, right? But I have to say that the community around us and the neighbors, all my neighbors here, they have accepted us. They actually love us. They have given us nothing but praise and acceptance, and it's just been a pretty good experience out here.
So
Um,
when you say us, are
I
are you
I
partnered with
I bought
somebody?
this place with my roommate, Christopherini.
Oh, okay.
We've been roommates since 2015,
Oh,
thereabouts.
okay. Okay.
we
Well,
kind of,
it's no wonder that you're having the experience that you're having. I think, I mean, when I first met you, Monica, I mean, I we hit it off immediately, and because it's always been about, the for me, the content of the character of the person, and the value, the soul and what's inside. And so I mean, I we've had so many great conversations over the past few years, and um so let's just get right into it, I guess. There's a lot of animosity, I think, right now in the world. There's a lot of division, and politicians especially aren't really doing us any favors, and they're forcing a lot of agendas down our throat, uh, without any consideration for really other people, despite the fact that they claim they want everybody to be um, inclusive and diverse, and equal, or they say equitable, which is different than equal, I think. But I think that's what they're talking about when they say the word equity, from their perspective, anyway. So it, when I was growing up, it was never a person's sexuality was never a big deal to me, certainly. When I grew up, when I was like in elementary school, in the 80s, people were certainly gay. I didn't have any gay friends at that age, or really knew of anybody in high school, but we've seen this explosion of transgenderism, I think, on the scene. I can say since COVID, but I suspect it was probably on the scene beforehand. What do you think is behind all of this? Because you know my position on this issue, and I've firmly believed that men cannot become women, and women cannot become men, like, specifically. But with respect, but I don't really care what you do as an adult, and that I just want the children to be left out of it, and for them to be able to make their own decisions. So maybe you can give me your perspective, like the history of your journey, and maybe help enlighten myself and also the viewers with respect to this very important topic.
well, let me just start by saying that, um, my story is quite common. Now, I just have to be clear that I think that today, just recent past 4 or 5 years, it's almost like it's become trendy to become trans. It's like a trend. It's a fad. Um, I think that transgender people, most transgender people, including the ones, such as myself, um, our stories are pretty much all the same. We felt different right from a very young age, and I I can think back as far as kindergarten, and um, I just remember a vivid. It's a very vivid memory, and there was uh, uh, I was in class, we were doing something, and I just had this moment of I just I didn't feel like everybody else. Like I just felt like I was different, and I didn't know what. And it wasn't until puberty that I really kind of sort of um, started to realize that, hey, I'm very different. Um, but it was almost like, I put this in my bio. It was it was kind of like a dark passenger for me. It was something that I couldn't I didn't want to bring out in public. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to reveal it. I just wanted to keep it my secret because, like I said, I called it my dark passenger. Um, it wasn't, it wasn't until, and I gotta say, I try to do everything that society expected of me. I played sports and I got married and I thought all those things would um, make me normal. Um, but what is normal? I I've come to realize that there's no such thing as normal life. There isn't. There just isn't a normal life. There's just life, and that's it. It's that's as plain as it gets. But throughout the years, the older I got, the stronger the feelings got. Like I managed to hide and bury those feelings for a long, long time. And there was a lot of occasions when I, found myself dressing up, um, wearing women's clothes, and just wondering what it was like to be a woman. And um, I remember asking my mom when I was really young. I was only like maybe 7 years old. What's it like to be a woman, Mom? Well, of course, my mom, being very old school, um, scolded me and told me not to talk about such subjects. So wasn't something I could talk about with other people.
Did
Um,
you ever did you ever have the opportunity to, speak with go to a counselor or seek therapy or talk to your doctor?
you know what? No, I just felt that it was just something that I they might institutionalize me over. I was that fearful of it. And you gotta remember that this is the 70s, right? And you couldn't that was very taboo. Like even being gay was, just people were just starting to accept gay people. So, but transgender people, yeah, no, it was something that was very, very taboo
And so
subject. And even
in
even
in
Hollywood didn't want to, they Hollywood. I want to say Hollywood didn't do transgender people any favors. Silence of the Lambs and all that stuff. But um, it's not something. It's almost like something that we were. It's almost like we were always seen as like drag queens or something, right? And we're not drag queens. We're totally not drag queens. Believe me.
So can I ask, and obviously, if you don't feel comfortable answering any of what I'm going to ask you, let me know. But can you tell me, like, did you have, were you, did you have a connection to any faith or religion or any of that when you were growing up through
Absolutely.
this?
I was raised united until I met uh, my wife Shirley, and then she was a Lutheran, and um, she asked if I would become a Lutheran, and I said, "Yeah, I don't have a problem with that." And I started reading up on the Lutheran Bible, and it was very similar to my United teachings, but um, I, I always, it's my nature to ask questions. Okay, I question everything, and um, I actually, at a very young age, my mom, like we'd go to church, and my mom would stick me in Sunday school, and I absolutely hated it. I just hated Sunday school. I wanted to be with the big people. And then after a while, I started, what the teacher in Sunday school, I started asking all these questions, um, and one Sunday, we're on our way to church, and Mom says to me, she turns in the back seat and says, "By the way, you'll be sitting with me today. You're not going to Sunday school." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that's not so bad." But I think
So
I
you,
drove the teacher crazy from all the questions because it was like, well, you know, what they're saying upstairs doesn't really jive with what you're saying downstairs here, like um it just didn't click, right? Why does, there's just just everything about the whole religious aspect. But yes, I am to to answer your question directly, I would say yes, I do believe in Jesus. I am a Christian. Um, I just the the whole experience with Art Pulowski and everything else has just kind of solidified the fact that I never really have believed in organized religion, and I think that's where I used to get so confused because I had friends that were Catholic. A lot of my friends were Catholic, and they had all kinds of different beliefs other than me, and I just didn't understand that. And um, I think that um, the whole religion, like everything is, to me, it's people. A lot of people have selective beliefs, and I think that's what uh, really confused me in my younger days. But I,
so I,
I understand that people have different beliefs now. It's like, um, there's a lot of, there's Judaism, there's Christianism, there's Muslims, there's Sikhs, there's all kinds of different beliefs. But I think when you funnel it down, it's all belief in a supreme being. So I
so can I,
I am
since we're on this,
spiritual, but I'm not religious.
right, right. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot about, some of the church teachings that, I think fall astray of the Bible. I went to Catholic school all my life. I'm not Catholic, and then I fell out of um, being Christian for a while in my 20s, and then I got brought back to Christianity in my 30s, and then again, fully in, especially with COVID, it really brought me back to the Bible because of all the madness that's going on in this world and trying to make sense out of it. So I'm curious because the Bible does talk about, two different sexes, there being male, female, and eunuchs, right? And I'm just curious, and I don't mean any offense by this, but I'm genuinely curious about how is it that you can claim to be Christian yet have these distinctions that are in the Bible of having two different gender, like two different sexes.
Well, I think when you come right down to it, Catherine, I would have to say that um, Jesus preached love, acceptance. Um, the story of Jesus is a very powerful one, and
Mhm.
I do believe, in Jesus, and I believe He is our Savior. Um, and I just think that if I have created a sin in God's eyes and Jesus' eyes, I'll be judged when I die.
Hmm.
and that's something I'm willing to accept. Um, I don't think that, I think that's the problem most mostly with deeply religious people, is that they're pretty quick to judge sometimes. And the Bible does say, judge not lest ye be judged. So
Well,
the Bible, the
I
Bible,
appreciate that.
the Bible is, it has some good teachings in it. It contradicts itself in a few places as well. But I don't want to get into the whole
No, we
theological
don't need to
thing.
go into that.
No, we don't need to go into that.
We don't need to go into that.
But there's better subjects to talk about
Well,
tonight, I think.
let's talk. Yeah, well, let's talk about. So, what I'm really curious is, like, for one, I don't. Like, I'm kind of tired of having sex thrown in our faces, right? And having this, this idea that somebody's sexual identity make is so important that it needs to be a protected class. I mean, I never would have, like, I see all people as equal, all people as having equal rights under our laws, and that, we're creatures of God, and we derive our rights from God anyway. But insofar as the government is concerned, that we're all equal. But now we have these protected classes, and I see all of this, not just transgenderism, but all of it is, now I see just a wedge to divide rather than bring together. And you know and then what I'm seeing in the schools is that you're taking really young people who whose brains aren't even fully developed yet, and um you know either convincing them or letting them um, continue with the idea that they are a different sex, that changing your sex is possible. I mean, because at the end of the day, when you and I both die and they dig up our bones, the science is clear, and our DNA will show how we were born and what sex we were born into, right? And
That's
so,
absolutely correct. Yes. I mean, from an from a
biological,
skeletal,
yeah.
having a hard time with that word.
Yeah.
From our skeletal prospect, um, I am woman-like, but I am not a real woman. And I get that. I understand that, and I I've resolved myself to that fact a long time ago. Like, I never went into this thinking that I'm coming out a real woman and I can give birth and all this other crap that other people think. Um, uh, I do not have a female pelvis. I do not have a female cranium. Um, there's little things about my body that, like, I don't have an Adam's apple. I never did. And I wondered about that, when I was growing up. Like, I'm like, so it's kind of like that. We're kind of segueing here, but um, that I was different from other, my friends, and I was just different from other guys, right? Um, I growing up, my friends would go to the bar
So,
and see how many women they could pick up, or
and you just weren't interested in
I
that
just was
women
not.
in
I
that
just
way. Although you
To
did
me,
get married and you had
it was
children.
a disrespect to women, right? It's just not the way I respected women.
Yeah.
And yeah, but you're to get back onto the subject here. There's people, I don't know why, but as far as I'm concerned, there's two genders. Okay, there's male, there's female. Um, You're either going to be presenting as male or you're presenting as female, be it you're trans or you're born that way or whatever. Um, but I don't understand this whole, I have to have 3 or 4 labels before I'm someone, you know, like the them, they stupidity. I don't believe in that. That's, to me, that's, I don't know
Or pronouns. If you don't get
what
my
that's all
pronoun
about.
right,
Yeah, exactly.
you're an
It's like,
evil person kind of
and
thing.
and you're supposed to and you're supposed to recognize that, right? Like if you misgender somebody, it's almost a crime now, and it's like, no, that's that's crazy. It's just
Yeah, I
crazy.
mean, I just see it's gone completely kind of way over. Like the pendulum has swung to the point where I don't even, it's not even recognizable anymore in this society that I grew up in, being a Judeo-Christian society, traditional kind of family values. And now all of a sudden we're thrust into a situation where and I did attend a gay pride parade before COVID, a few years before COVID, took my children there. And then the following year we went, and then we noticed that people were dressed up in fetish gear and wearing a ball gag and all the rest of it. And I thought that was very inappropriate to have my little, 6-year-old son and my children witnessing in broad daylight, and people half naked prancing around everywhere. I mean,
You
to
know that
me,
that's
eh, to me that in addition to what's happening in our schools, with if you feel a certain different way, I just think that all of this education has no place in our school system. like
No, you're right.
like
You're right.
any of this information is just destructive to
Kids kids are very impressionable, okay?
yeah.
And you know that. Being that you have kids, they're extremely impressionable. And their mind, and it's like you said, their brains haven't fully developed yet. So they're just, they're trying to see where they are going to fit in the world, right? Um, it's interesting that you said you went to a pride parade because, and this is going back to 2014. Um, we actually had a bunch of my transgender friends. We actually had a float in the Pride Parade in 2014 and 2015, I believe. And then 2015 was it was that's the year that everything changed. Um, that's when the Pride Committee said, "Oh no, if you want to march in the, if you're a policeman or a fireman or something, you can't wear your uniform. It's too militant." And I just thought that's crazy. That's nuts. And it was just it just seems like it's been a s- a s- a slide downhill from there. It's been a I mean it's really picked up steam in the past few years, right? It's just gotten crazy. Um, these I call them the alphabet mafia because that's what they're basically doing. They're extorting people, and some of these politicians, I don't understand why they're, well, I do understand. It's about column inches and it's about votes, right? I think that's why the LGBT community is gravitating toward toward the left, right? I mean, because it's people like Rachel Notley and Justin Trudeau, they support these people. I don't think they give a shit about my language,
No,
but
it's okay. Yeah.
they don't give a crap about uh, the LGBT people, but they see it. All they see is votes, and that's exactly what they're doing. They're just manipulating these people into a false belief that hey, we care about you. No, they don't. They don't care about you. All they
Well,
care
and do
about
you
is
think
power.
and do you think, Monica, like I think discrimination happens all over the place. I mean, as a young lawyer, female lawyer, I certainly I experienced different forms of harassment, probably discrimination. Like I don't think anybody is immune from that. But now we have a society where all of a sudden we're being led to believe that we've had this, like all of these trans people in the world, which I believe make up a very, very small minority of people, have been completely discriminated against and marginalized their entire lives, notwithstanding the fact that we have gay people who have been elected, into as MPs, right? I mean, and they're
Yeah.
claiming that they're discriminated against and that they need to be protected and that they need to have these special rights and all this nonsense. And I'm thinking, when did this become a thing? Like, obviously, I'm not transgender, so I don't have that experience of being discriminated against or harassed, but I certainly experienced it. But I didn't let that define my identity and keep me in victim mode my entire life.
Well, you've exactly right. All these militant people, and believe me, I have transgender friends out there who are on the same plane as myself, and they both, politically, they believe I've actually, you know, I think I've changed their minds on a few things about the political system, because once they become informed, and then they can have an informed opinion, right? Um, Everybody seems to have an opinion about the LGBT community, but let's face it, the internet and some of these extremists, they're not doing us any favors. They are not.
Yeah.
They're actually they are not helping um, the real trans people, I'll say. And when I say real trans people, I mean the people that are they don't want to be outed. They don't want a whole bunch of attention drawn to themselves. They just want to live their lives like like anyone else. Like any other heterosexual person, they just want to live their lives, and they want to work at a job where they can be respected, and they just want to go through life not having to fight um, for any special rights, because my my philosophy is like, what for all these people who want special rights and special protection and everything else. It's like, well, you already have that.
Yeah,
um it's,
we all have these special rights. They're called human rights.
they're called the
And
human rights, right? Exactly.
yeah.
1940, it goes back as far as 1948, believe it or not. And like, there's even history before that. So um and that's where the education fails people, right? There's no such thing as real history. um there's just, I call it faux history. It's learning about the Napoleonic Wars and stuff like that. Well, that's fine, but that's not teaching anybody. It's like, how did I get here today? Why am I here?
Yeah,
Well,
we don't actually, you and I were talking about that earlier too, about, how the school system doesn't actually provide us um, preparation for anything, and my whole thing is like, this issue is in the how society and these politicians and special interest groups are dealing with it
right.
is I don't even know if they recognize that they're causing more division than had they just, let everybody just have the same human rights and no special treatment. But I mean, of course, I see this as a bigger agenda from the globalists in particular, and people who don't share the same faith and values that you and I might share, in particular,
Exactly. That's
or worldview, right? I see this as a very left-leaning, Marxist, cultish, satanic interpretation of what and they're using this issue of transgenderism as a way to express that, because that's kind of what that faith believes in, to be
you, you
honest.
know you know
They
you know
Baphomet is like both sexes and an animal.
Catherine, it politicians, okay, um, and I was involved in, and as you know, I was involved in politics for 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, Politicians, this is what they're after. This is all by design. This is something that they have figured out a long time ago. If we can keep fighting with each other, okay, so keep the masses separated, fighting with each other, all right, then they're not gonna know what is really going on, and they are so, and they're talking. I'm talking about the general population here. So keep us all distracted, fighting with each other, and they just do. They want less for us and more for themselves, and that's what they want,
Yeah.
and it's all by design. So
Yeah.
it's I guess, um, the best way to put it, it don't be afraid of what you don't understand, because a lot of people are afraid
Do
of
you think
transgender
do you
people just
think
because.
that sexual orientation and gender identity should be taught in our schools?
No, absolutely not. That What needs to be taught in schools is math, English, science, and not pseudoscience like a lot of us are aware of, um, during COVID. Real science. Um, when I was in school, I was very interested in astronomy, and I still am. Um, it's kind of one of the hobbies I have, but um, I don't think that kids need to be taught, um, how many genders there are. Um, that
Or that there's more
I
than
guess
one,
they'll
or
figure
there's
that out
more
on the
than
street.
two, right? I mean, this idea that, you can identify as a furry, you can identify as like
Oh,
a
I
black
know.
person, can identify as white person, and
Yeah,
or that you can identify as, like all of this stuff. I mean, like
this
this is
this
just,
whole identify movement. Yeah, I don't understand that. I guess, but again, that's just something that is being. But I mean, where does that come from? That's the question we really have to ask ourselves right now. Where is all this nonsense coming from? Is it coming from the education system? Is it coming from the post-secondary education system? Is it like where is it coming from? Who is heading all this nonsense? Because
well, I
that's
think
exactly what it is. I think it's
like I
I think it's I think it's nonsense that you know we have to identify as something. Well, tell you what, um, I guess in the long run, um, there's only one race, really, and that's the human race. Because
yeah,
you take our skin off, we're all the same underneath. Believe me.
yeah.
Um, it's just the way it is. But
So Danielle Smith, earlier this year, she announced these parental rights measures. I put it in quotes because I don't think they were parental rights, but where she, is allowing SOGI to continue to be taught in school, and you're as a parent, you can decide to opt your children out. And I think that's going to cause a lot of division amongst those people being opted out, because obviously there's going to be that distinction, like, well, why wasn't Harry in class today? Well, because his mom took him out because we're learning about this topic. And and I think that there's an opportunity there for it to create more of a hostile environment in the schools. But in addition to that, she's legalized, or she's allowing minors at 16 years and 17 years old to start the process of chemical castration through the introduction of puberty blockers. I mean, like, I don't understand how, I'm obviously against it, because I think if you're an adult, you make adult decisions, but still at 16 and 17, even with parental consent, I think that, it's codifying into law something that is not true, and potentially very harmful for somebody. I mean, you transitioned later in life after you had children. I mean, would you have thought that, would you do you, I mean, it's hard to talk in retrospect, right? Because it's your life happened and unfolded the way it unfolded, right? But um so do you think that that kind of move makes any sense, especially insofar as 16-year-old and 17-year-olds are concerned? And do you support her bringing in doctors to perform these types of surgeries, and that taxpayers should be paying for it?
no. Okay, so I'll just give you a little bit of insight to what I now. I don't know, things might have changed, but no, I do not believe that a 16-year-old or a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, for that matter, has the mental capacity to decide whether or not they want to proceed with hormone therapy. Now, hormone therapy can be, administered through testosterone, or or if you're a female, it's testosterone, and if you're a male, it's testosterone blockers and estrogen. Now, when I finally decided that I'll just give you a little bit of history about myself and what I went through. First of all, I would say there's a period in my life from about the time I was 35 to 45, I was extremely suicidal. And I'm talking, um, thinking about ways of how I could kill myself. And I thought about it.
Monica, did you have a history of like any trauma growing up?
No, not really.
No. Okay.
No, not really. No,
Okay.
no, I wasn't abused or anything like that. No, I had a pretty normal childhood, I would say.
Okay. Sorry, I
Um,
interrupted you, but
no, that's okay. That's okay. But I was, like I said, I was extremely suicidal. And I mean, there was lots of times where I was, like when I was working as a testing geologist, if it wasn't for the guy next to me in the next seat, I was pretty confident I might have just steered my truck into the path of a semi or something like that. It's it and it's all because of the tug of war in my brain, because my body says, well, you're a male, but my brain is telling me, no, you think like a girl, you want to be a girl,
but how do
you like dressing
but
as a
how do you
girl,
know?
you like.
Monica, how do you know that? I mean, I'm really intrigued by this, because I mean, I'm a woman, but I never think of myself as a woman. I just think of myself as me, a person, right? I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know what it feels like to be a woman, just like I don't know what it would feel like to be a man. I know what it feels like to be me. So I'm curious, like, and you may not be able to explain it because, like, I mean, because I can't explain what it feels like to be a woman other than the fact that I know that I am one.
You know what? It's I can't explain it either. It's just something, and I'll just keep moving forward,
Sure.
and I'll get into that. I'll get into that.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
cover that. So I was dressing quite regularly during those years, and I mean I fought it for a lot of years, right? It was just, and then when I twisted off, I twisted off big time. Like every it's almost became like an obsession, um, and then my like when I think it was at 45 ish, 45, 46, I actually was looking for a way to tell my wife what was going on inside my head. But every time I tried to do that, she she just seemed to ignore it or cut me off, or she would change the subject or whatever. It's almost like she didn't want to know. But then she found out through pictures of me dressed up as a woman. She found out, right, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end of my marriage. Um, Now later on, um, she understands because things that have happened in her life, and I can get into that later. But when I finally decided that I couldn't take it anymore, um, I decided that I was going to go talk to get some professional help, because I thought I've got to find out for myself what's going on inside my head. So I went to my doctor, and I asked her to put me on hormones, and she said, "Well, I can't do that." So she fired off a letter to Edmonton, and that's when she got the ball rolling for me and started to get me help. And I had to wait about 11 months, I think it was, before I got my first appointment with the provincial psychologist. And at that time, there was only one, and that was I think uh, my first visit was December of 2012. And like I said, it took me 11 months to get that appointment. And so my transgender friends are all telling me the same thing. You'll go see Dr. Warnicki. You'll um, you'll spend about 10-15 minutes with his uh, his intern, and then you'll spend about 45 minutes to an hour with Dr. Warnicki. Well, at that time, my first visit, they asked me if I would mind spending some time with uh, um, a new intern who was, um, because you have to realize that there is only one certified provincial specialist for transgender psychologists. Um, and I'm telling you, he was the nicest old guy you could ever meet. And when I had my first visit, I plain out asked him, "Why? Why am I like this? What is going on inside?" And the answer he gave me was, uh, it happens in the womb, the wiring in the brain, um, because he said there's a certain trimester of the pregnancy that's when the hormones kick in. That's when the wiring starts to happen, and that's when your body says you're either male or female. And he said that sometimes that gets all jumbled up and crossed up. And
But clearly
he said that's
you're
pretty
born a
much,
male. So, and he was saying that it's something that's hardwired in your brain that's doing this.
yeah. I mean, the studies were in their infancy and there were very new studies about that, but that was about the best explanation, I could get. Um, and
And
I
then
was, I was, I
did
was
you end
okay
up
with that.
going on? Did you end up going on um, blockers,
Yeah.
or and then starting and then you started the
Well,
and so
they
it
were specifically asked me what I want, right? Like they don't push, okay? Nothing was ever pushed, and I'll specify that nothing was ever pushed on me. It was
do you think
always
it's pushed now on people?
it. Oh, I think it is. I think it is big time. But at that time, see, and I at that time, now we're going back 10 years, right? Or 12 years ago now. So, um, you know, it actually. I had to go get an appointment with after that. See, after I saw him, he set me up with an appointment with the endocrinologist, and I had to I had to get a whole bunch of blood work done. So it was a process,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a fast track process. It was a very slow process, and I think it took over from the time I saw Warnicky to the time I was actually on started hormone therapy was probably 4 or 5 months. So I think it was beginning of April is when I actually started. Like I had the pills, and I just thought, well, once I start taking these pills, that's it. I don't think I'm going to look back.
Right.
But I made myself a promise that if it didn't screw my head on a little tighter, um, and if I started to go batshit crazy, I was going to drop everything, right? And actually, it's amazing what the hormone therapy did. Actually, um, it actually it did help. It I can't stress enough. It helped. Like it made me realize, yes, this is who I am. And it took away all um, those guilt feelings, the feelings of guilt, the uh, the um, the self doubt, um, the feelings of suicide.
Hmm.
Um, it took away all that. It saved my life,
And
literally.
so and then and then you made the decision to actually have surgery, and that must have been a well,
It
was
took
it a
me
hard
3 years.
decision?
Well, like I said, I started hormones therapy in 2013, and I think it was late 2016, early 2017 when I finally decided. Oh, and that was because they kept asking me, like, and again, it wasn't pushed on me. It was just a question. Um, are you? Do you have you thought about surgery? Have you thought about what's going through your mind? And every up until that time, it was like, well, no, I just want to make sure the hormones are the hormone therapy is working for me. And it turned my life around basically. um
So why did
And
you feel that you needed to take the next step to physically alter your body?
uh, I just thought that it was. I guess it's in that aspect. It's it's a very personal decision. But it was to complete the transition. I mean, I that's a hard thing to come to get across. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I'm frozen up. But
Yep.
anyway,
Yeah, I can still
um,
hear you. Yeah.
it's I guess I just wanted to complete my transition. Um, that's the best explanation I can tell you. It was just I guess I just wanted to go and actually not have to worry about hiding my junk. Um,
Right.
because you go to a public pool or anything like that, or a public hot spring. I mean, there's hot springs galore up here,
Yeah.
and they're all public. And it was. I just. I mean, I'm still very conscious of my body, but you know, I I'm not afraid to go into a woman's dressing room and get naked because now I look just like every other woman. Um, my body is woman-like. I am not a real woman again, but I am woman-like. Um, and after my surgery, I mean, it's a year of hell. Uh, you're basically 3 months and you are literally, I mean, the heaviest thing I could lift is a jug of milk. That was it. Um, but it's a very tough surgery to get over with and to heal from. And but I did, and I had a couple of complications, but they were pretty minor. um, but if I can get back to my ex-wife, um, at first she did not. It was more about her, how she felt about things than how I felt. Um, and then after a while, she started going to her divorce group, and she friended another lady. And ironically, this lady's son was just graduating high school and came to her and said, "Mom, I think I'm a girl. I think I'm your daughter." And so this lady asked my ex-wife if she would accompany her to some of the support meetings. Um, so after that, she uh, she came to terms with it, and her and I today, um, I think we have a stronger relationship today than we ever did when we were married. Um,
Right. Well, I just think it's so like I think it's just so important. Like, we're like I respect you as a person, Monica, and I cherish you as a person and like I would any other person. And I think, I really am thankful for you for sharing your perspective and your story with me so candidly because um we have this viewpoint that's depicted through the lens of TikTok that
yeah,
all trans people of one feel the same way about the issue, that they're all like like these dressed up in costume and hypersexualized, and that's not at all the picture you're painting for me. You're obviously just want to be just the same as everybody else.
I have many
Would
transgender
that
friends
be
who are exactly the same.
would that be
They just
accurate?
want exactly. They just want to live their life in peace and harmony with other people. They don't want to be outed. Um, they don't want to attract a whole ton of attention to themselves, like, oh, look at me, I'm transgender, that's, to me, I don't think that's really, I think that's just narcissistic lunacy.
Yeah.
It's, they're not,
It's so self-absorbed. It's so self-absorbed.
they are, they're, I blame, I honestly blame and I mean, let's face it, a lot of these people are in post-secondary institutions, right? And
Yeah.
I blame, our post-secondary education system. It's become an indoctrination center. Or centers, and it's no different in the United States. It's no different here. They're
Well, it's
all.
everywhere though, Monica. It's not just our universities.
It is.
The initial infiltration was it was in academia, but it's now spilled over to this Marxist communist ideology that's taken over everything, right? It's in our judiciary, it's in our law societies, it's in our governments, it's absolutely everywhere, right? So I think there's that distinction between, people, and I follow on X, the group Gays Against Groomers, and there's, and I've had other guests on this program that are identify themselves as Orwellian socialists, and I'm not. I'm like conservative and Christian, but there is a lot of common ground that we have, that you and I have. I mean, we have very similar political views about things, from the economic perspective, and I think probably social perspective as well. And that it's really this small group of woke mindset, that and progressive mindset, that has become like this infectious cancer in our society and in all elements of our society, that does not actually represent a lot of the trans, gay, or any other group. They're just kind of way out there in way beyond left field.
I sometimes wonder, with all these activists, like the LGBT activists, I sometimes wonder if in 20 years they're not going to look back on their life and go, "What the hell was I thinking?" Um, I I I mean, I do that. I do that all the time. It's like, what the hell was I thinking? You see a picture of yourself, or you see a post that comes up on Facebook or whatever. It's like, oh my God, what was I thinking when I said that? Right? Like, it's all about growing as a person. Um, if you, I'm 61 years old, or well, not yet. End of this month, I'll be 61. Um, but I was raised during the 70s, right? And things were a lot different back then. You didn't talk about homosexuality, didn't talk about transgender, certainly not that. I mean, men dressing up as women, you're freaks, right? You're a freak. Um, and when I was running for MLA, believe me, I, I people found out that I was transgendered, right? And I mean, oh my God, some of the comments on Facebook, it's like, I've been called a lot worse by a lot better people than you, right? Um,
Mhm.
I heard just about everything during that election. So, but I had a lot of
Yeah.
support too. I did. And
Yeah,
I mean,
well, I mean,
you've run for MLA,
yeah.
you've probably heard some of the comments about, just because of the fact that we're separatists, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, you're separate. Oh my God. No, no, it's, I guess, it's all about perspective, right?
Yeah, I think that what I want to do is try to work on the solution and work on what I think if we focused on what it is that are our similarities and what we have in common rather than what our differences are and make us, seemingly apart then, like different from the other person, I think that it would be a really good step in the right direction to helping bring people together rather than tear us apart. And I mean, that it's not just about this issue. I think it's about all the issues. But of course, they like a divided society because when we're fighting amongst each other about anything and everything, then we're easily manipulated and distracted. And so I think you would agree
Right.
with me about that. But let's so thanks for being so honest about your experience, and I really do appreciate that. um let's delve in. We have about 20 minutes left, and I want to just delve into the Independence Party of Alberta. You were
Right.
on the board last year when in 2023 when Art Pulowski was the leader of the party at the time.
Yep.
And just prior to the election, on April 1st, the board, and I was not on the board of the party, and I had just actually come back to the party a few weeks before that to run and in Old Didsbury Three Hills, and so this all kind of happened. It was kind of a shock to me because I hadn't been following what was going on, but you nine of you decided to have a vote and remove him as the leader, and that caused quite a stir. And do you feel comfortable sharing what led up to the decision of the board to make the
I
decision
will.
to do what you did?
I would be happy to. I would be happy to get the truth out there finally, right? Because
Okay,
I
perfect.
can't
Let's
tell
do
you,
it.
I've heard, I've seen Vicky on the Chris and Carrie show and whatnot, and I've seen Bob Leone on, oh, I can't remember what his show is, Shadow. I can't remember his last name.
Something. Yeah.
Um, and I've seen Art out and about, right? They all have, so, Vicky tried to explain it
Well,
in
let's
a
hear it from
very
you. Let's hear it from you
political.
and what you think.
Okay. All right. Well, where do you want me to start? Do you want me to start from the
Well, I
time
mean,
that
there
he?
obviously was, sorry, my son keeps on calling me. I just can't pick it up right now. Um,
I'll tell you what. I'll start from the time that from the time that um, you threw your hat in the ring. Okay. And I
yeah,
was very
okay, so
excited about that.
just to give people the background, I was in the race for leader, and Art Pulowski then entered the race fairly late on. And then he ended up becoming the leader of the Independence Party. And then I bowed out. Really, I ended up removing myself from the party, not because I didn't want to participate, but I felt like I was being sidelined. And so I took some time away from the party at that point.
And I was disappointed that you did that, because I thought you had a lot to offer. But okay, so Bob Leon is the one that actually came into a board meeting one time and actually discussed another candidate, and Art Pulowski, his name came up, and he wanted to know what everyone thought. So we all went around, everybody threw in their 2 cents, and my thought was, okay, he's very controversial. He could get us some traction with the media, perhaps. Um, but I said, how does he feel about me in particular? And a lot of to my surprise, I didn't like Sharon.
Another board member. Yeah.
Sharon, oh, why can't I think of her last name? Anyway, she was the president at that time, and even she came to me at that 23 AGM, and she said, "I had no idea you were transgender. I had no clue until Vicky told her." And a lot of people didn't, and I was quite surprised by that. Um, but anyway, I basically said, "How does he feel about me?" And you know, there was nothing but silence, right? And so I'm like, okay, that's all I have to say. And then, so if you want to fast forward to he gets elected, I I was I was happy, but I was sad because I really wanted to see, well, I wanted to see you in there because I didn't think that Art was I didn't think he was a separatist. Um, so I just all I had to my thoughts were, we'll see what kind of a leader he's going to make.
Right. And so what happened, like, were there, I heard that there were like 4 or 5 incidences that
Things
really.
started to fall apart about the first part of December, um, because he was not he was there representing himself in most instances. Like anything that he got invited to, any um, any event, he was there representing himself. Art Pulowski, pastor, Street Church, and I thought, well, he's the leader of the Independence Party. Shouldn't he be, you know? And I brought this to the board's attention. I said, and Dan as well, right? Like Dan and I, we had a really good rapport going because, um, you know, we we were on the same level. It's like, um, why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he doing that? Why isn't he, at least, we're not, I don't care if he wants to preach. I don't care if he wants to do that, but
Right.
at least
So
let's try and bring the Independence Party into the fold here, right? And so when things really started to go sideways is it was a lot of little things, Catherine, that led up to big things. And the big thing was that last um, set of events that were um, party funded, party everything. Like everything was, funded by the Independence Party. Um, and there were a
and
couple
he was
of
fundraising on the
events.
stage for his
Yeah, well,
church.
there was a couple of events, and I'll get specific here. The one in High River, um, uh, people started asking him where they could donate to, and this was a constituency association funded event. Okay, it was what is that one? That's the
Livingston
High
McLeod.
River. Yeah,
right? Wasn't
thank
it
you.
Livingston McLeod? Yeah.
Livingston McLeod. Yes, that's the one. It was funded by that whole entire CA. They're the ones that put the event on. So people were asking him where they could donate to, and he was on the stage, and he said, he started giving him the street church address, and Maureen stood up. She's a board member. Actually, she was a CA board and provincial board.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one that stood up and said, no, that's not right. That's not the right address. It should be going to this. See, so she told everybody
Yeah.
where to donate to,
Yeah.
and that infuriated him. Just infuriated him because you know he wanted it. He wanted that money to go to street church, and same with Calgary. He did the same thing with Calgary,
Yeah.
and Vicky had to correct that.
Well,
And
and I had heard, and like, there were other rumors maybe that you can confirm or dispel, that there might have been, so that like the money kind of going sideways there from being diverted from the party to his church. And then I recall, was there anything else like
no, there was. Well, I'll
apart
tell
from
you what.
that?
There was. Okay, so there was all those events, right? And there was a lot of there was a lot of well, he was just being very manipulative. Um, and what really clinched it for me was his last event in Grand Prairie. And he was standing on the stage and he was doing his preaching thing. Pardon me. And he pointed at the banner behind him and he specifically said, "I do not work for these people." And of course, everybody's all clapping and cheering and whatnot because they know he works for Jesus, right, or God, or whatever. But um, he when he said that, that clinched it for me. And at that time, uh, Dan beat me to the phone because I was ready to phone Dan and ask him if he had seen that. And I basically said, well, I think it's time we called a special meeting of the board and discuss this and see, you know. And then that's when it was thrust upon me as the secretary, um, because I had the time, and they wanted me to research and see how many of the bylaws and policies he had contravened.
Right.
And he had contravened 5 bylaws and 1 policy. Um, he would come into board meetings, especially after the board election committee had gone through its list and finalized the list of candidates. And I was chair of uh, that committee. It usually falls on the membership director to chair that committee, but Vicky was so busy with everything else that she asked me if I would chair it. So I said, absolutely. So it was, there was, I believe, 5, 6 of us on that committee. Um, and like I said, we finalized the list, and no one from Art's camp, because he had sent a few people from his church to run on the board, and
To be nominated, to put their name forward to run
put
in
their name
at the
forward.
AGM,
Exactly.
right?
So they
Right.
wanted to, yeah, they wanted. So the only like the one that we really didn't have a problem with was um, uh, oh, I can't remember his name now, but anyway, he's the secretary of Street Church. But
Right.
Jacqueline, his wife, was at that time uh, the chief financial officer. So we were trying to do away with, you know, married couples being on the board. We were trying to get away from that. I mean, we needed the help, but you know, like I said, it. I think his name was Nick. But
So,
anyway,
so it
we decided that we weren't going to put his name forward. And I'm telling you, when Art found out about that, and Art's brother, Dawid, when Art found out about that, oh my God, he came into that board meeting and he was on fire. And I got accused of, you know, everything, right? Um, and he actually, I mean, point of order had to be called a couple of times on him. And he was livid. Um, and he called basically everyone on that committee a liar. And I said, well, you know, as the chair of that committee, uh, where's your proof? If you're going to come in here accusing people, you better be able to back it up with something. And
So,
he
I mean,
went,
I guess at the end of the day, the board called a special meeting. You had decided that he had contravened certain sections of the bylaws and
five.
the five and a policy, um and then you voted obviously to let him go, and then there was a backlash from that by Art and his group of people. I ended up getting dragged into it, even though I
Yes, you
was
did
not on.
unfairly, I might say. Yes, you were unfairly dragged in. And but you know what? I'll tell you one thing. Um, prior to that, we had found out that Bob Leone was in the background, and there was targets on Vicky's back, my back. Anybody that was on that um, board election committee had a target. Okay, and then after we
What do you mean a
got rid of Art,
target? Like he
well,
wanted, what does that mean?
well, we were silently being targeted through um, with Arts. It was basically all of Bob was just basically going out there because I don't know how, but he had access. Somehow he had access to everybody's well art. Well, like I said, I don't know this, but he had access to everybody's email, and he was emailing people, and they were, you know, Art's followers, right? But he was emailing people and telling them how to vote in the election, in the board election.
Hmm. Oh,
Um,
okay. So he
so
was
you know,
trying, was there, would you say that there was a campaign then to try to not get
oh
you
yeah,
reelected to be on the board? Is that what you're talking about?
get me not unelected. Yeah, like they were, you know,
Yeah,
they did.
yeah,
Yeah,
because the
he was
AGM
telling
was coming up, right?
he was telling people who to vote for and who not to vote for. So
Right,
if
right.
the way it works is if you know if you don't get a vote, if you don't get a yes or a no, then you're out, right? Like that means you don't
So
get
one
any
of
votes.
one of the things I mean, because all of that happened, and then there was like a hit list of people, to not vote for, and then I was on that list too, even though I wasn't running for a board position. But there was certain vitriol spewed my way and lies
Oh yes,
told about me as well, even though I had nothing to do with any of it. But in any respect, what I understand happened was that he also concocted a story about you, related to you being transgender. Is that
oh yeah,
correct?
yeah. That was on Facebook. Still have those screenshots. Um, but I was if I remember the wording correctly, I spearheaded the coup against. I mean, Art is such a victim of everything, right? Um, you know
He
what?
kind of spun it around like he had done nothing
He
wrong. He was a victim, and that there
exactly.
was,
He did
and that you
nothing
guys,
wrong. He's a
yeah,
victim. And the transgender secretary spearheaded the whole thing, and you know,
yeah.
just demonizing me, right? And it's like, Art, go ahead. I mean, we say I think to this day we somewhat saved the party. Um,
Oh,
I
well,
mean,
I think you did, although I think I don't know where they are right now. I mean,
yeah. Well,
but
I mean,
anyway,
they're in limbo right now, right? I mean, the Independence Party is it's I don't know. I wasn't at the AGM, so I can't really say, but I think Rhonda from the Livingston McLeod, she's the president of the Livingston McLeod. I think she went, and she wasn't really impressed with anything. But like I said, I had a pretty good chat with Bill Doherty, and I let him know how I felt and how people are feeling. And I said, I can't speak for a lot of people. I can't speak for the rest of the board that got fired or unelected. I can't speak for Catherine. I can't speak for a lot of people. I can speak for myself. And what I
mhm.
see is people are, um, I think people are on the fence here right now. But they're looking for someone that they can rally behind. They need a
Yeah.
name. They need a face. They need someone to bring back that glimmer of hope that hey, independence can happen for Alberta. Um, we just need to we just need to start
Well,
educating people.
yeah, and
I think
I think over time it will end up happening. It will become clear to people that we have to separate from Canada to get out from under the clutches of the globalists that want to destroy all elements of our society, including our economy. But listen, we're at 127 now. Monica, I really thank you for joining me today. And you've given me a lot of things to think about. And I think probably a lot of the viewers something to contemplate as well. And at the end of the day, I think I hope people have realized that what what is happening right now with this woke, as you call it, what did you call it? Alphabet mafia. That
alphabet
they
the
Is
alphabet
that what you
mafia.
called it?
Yes, they're
That they don't represent probably a big portion of your community, and um, that there are very reasonable, rational, common sense people, and I think that that group that is distracting from everybody else is doing a lot of damage, not only to the perception, but also they're harming children. And at the end of the day, I hope you continue to use your voice to speak the truth about the harms around that for children in particular, because we need to protect our children, I think, at all costs. And
well,
so your voice is powerful in that, because that community has tried to co-opt it into something that I don't think it is.
you know what? I think you know I've been looking at conversations on online, Facebook, other conversations, and people are frustrated. They don't know what to do, how to combat this.
Yeah.
And I think in the short term, what I tell people is like, look, pull your kid out of school and homeschool them. That way, what content they're seeing, and you
Yeah.
have control, right? Um,
Yeah.
over what they see and what they don't see. You don't need to uh, hide them from the world, but excuse me, but uh, they don't need to be subjected to all this
It's almost like a
nonsense. I call it
perversion.
nonsense. Well, I call it
It's
nonsense,
nonsense,
right? It's just
but it's more,
nonsense.
it's like graphic novels of
Yes. Yeah.
sexual
Like
positions and pictures, and it's not like, whatever happened to discretion and being discreet and mind, like certain things that just don't,
that
that aren't appropriate for public
that's
display.
not that's not sex education. Okay. I
No.
remember when I took sex ed in school, I had to get my parents' permission
Yeah.
to do it. And, we learned about, reproductive systems
Yeah, like
and,
science, like the biology.
exactly the human body and how it works.
Yeah.
And we had open discussions about, um, certain things, but we didn't really talk about sexual positions or sexual acts or anything
I
like that.
know.
It's
I
crazy.
know.
Like
I know.
it's that's why I say it's all become nonsense. But I think pull your kid out of if you feel that strongly about it, pull your kid out of school, homeschool them, because that's where the funding from public schools comes from, is from like how many, it's a head count. And if the head
Yeah.
count is dwindling and depleting, so does the
Yeah.
money, because the money follows apparently in Alberta, I don't know about this anymore, but apparently the money follows the student.
Yeah.
Um, and if you take that money away, then that's what they listen to, right?
I
Politicians
know.
listen
Well,
to money.
I know, in more ways than one. So, well, and
Exactly. Votes
well,
and
thank
money. That's
you.
the two things they
Yeah,
they
exactly. Well,
but
thanks again,
we'll have to
Monica,
do this
for,
again.
yeah, please stay in touch, and who knows, maybe we'll see you down, in politics again. But please keep in touch, and thanks again for your honesty, your bravery, and our friendship. I appreciate it.
Maybe. Thanks, Catherine, and I appreciate the hour and a half that we've spent together, and it was really good talking to you again. But yeah,
Thanks.
we need to do this again and keep in touch, and
Perfect.
and God bless everyone. Just
Thank you.
stay safe.
Yeah. Thanks, Monica. Take care.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.